Hi, welcome to ELK. Today we're going to talk about the pronunciation of the final ED. Let's start by talking about some rules that are going to come in handy to determine better how to pronounce that final ED. Okay? In English, the final ED sound may be pronounced as the, ta, id, or ed. Okay? As you can notice in the example words, the words failed, talked, heated, and needed. Okay? In each one of those words, the ED is pronounced in a different way. So let's see why. The pronunciation of the ED at the end of a word depends on the sound. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. On the sound, not necessarily the letter immediately preceding the ED. Okay? So if the sound immediately preceding the ED is a voiced sound other than the, like the L in the word filled, then the ED is pronounced as the. Okay, it is very important to keep in mind that the sound preceding the ED can be any voiced sound other than the. Okay? There is a special rule that applies to words in which the ED is preceded by the sound the. So, if the ED is preceded by a sound, a voiced sound other than the, then the ED is going to be pronounced the. Okay? It's going to be pronounced as the whenever the ED is preceded by a voiced sound. Okay? Let's remember that voiced sounds are those sounds that when we produce them, there is vibration of the vocal cords. Let's move on to the next rule. It says if the sound immediately preceding the ED is a voiceless sound, okay, no vibration of the vocal cords when we produce it. If it is a voiceless sound other than t, like the k in the word talked, then the ED is pronounced as t. Okay, let's go back a little bit. The final sound, the ED, how we're going to pronounce that ED, we're going to determine that by looking at the sound preceding the ED. If it is a voiceless sound other than t, then that ED is going to be pronounced as t. Okay? Like in the word talked. The next rule is for the t and the preceding the ED. For those cases in which we have a t or a d preceding the ED. Okay? In those cases, like in the word heated and in the word needed, then the ED is pronounced as a separate syllable, as ed or id. Okay? So important. If the sound preceding the ED is a t or d, then the ED is going to be pronounced ed or id. Okay? So, as we can see, knowing the type of voicing of the sound immediately preceding the ED at the end of a word is a helpful guide to pronounce such ending correctly. So, if we're clear about what sounds in the English language are voiced and which sounds are voiceless, and we observe what sound is preceding the ED, then we're going to be in a better position to know how to pronounce that ED correctly. Let's look at each rule in detail. I want to emphasize that all these sounds highlighted in green, okay, are voiced. All the vowels are voiced, and the sounds highlighted in green here are voiced as well. The is also voiced, but the rule does not apply to the, okay? Remember that if the sound immediately preceding the ed is a voiced sound other than the ed is pronounced as the, okay? So if the sound preceding the ed is any of the sounds highlighted in green here, then that ed is going to be pronounced the. For the next rule, if the sound immediately preceding the ed is a voiceless sound other than t, the ed is pronounced as t, okay? So I want you to pay attention to the sounds highlighted in green. Again, if you find any of those sounds preceding the ed at the end of a word, then that ed is going to be pronounced t. Notice that the sound t is in red, because remember that t is also a voiceless sound, but the rule that applies when t precedes the ed is different. It's actually the next one that we're going to see. If the sound immediately preceding the ed is t or the ed is pronounced as ed or id. It's more common to hear ed than id, okay? So again, the only two sounds here highlighted in green are t and the. If those sounds precede the ed at the end of a word, any of those two sounds precedes the ed at the end of a word, then the ed is going to be pronounced as an extra syllable. Finally, let's look at some examples of the different pronunciations of the ed at the end of a word, okay? Like we can see in the word fainted, the final ed is pronounced as a separate syllable, it. Then removed, the final ed is pronounced the. Scared, the final ed is pronounced the. Scratched, here, then the final ed is pronounced t. Then pretended, the ed is pronounced as an extra syllable, okay, in that word. And the word filmed, the ed is pronounced the. In all those words, the rules are being applied. Remember that it's all about determining the type of voicing of the sound preceding the ed, or if the sound preceding the ed is a t or a d. That would be all for today. See you soon.